But Jeffrey Goldberg has written in The Atlantic that the Charlie Hebdo massacre seems to be the direct attack on Western ideals by jihadists. Yet, I've seen arguments advancing the idea that 9/11 represents the purest expression of Islamic rage at a specific Western idea, capitalism in that case. But satire and the right to blaspheme are directly responsible for modernity. It does seem that there is right now a clash of two civilizations that are being played out here.
You're quite right, but I think we also have to take a look more closely at the nature of the so-called satire. I have not seen what I'm about to say, but I've been told by some people that some of the cartoons were absolutely appallingly vulgar and directed at the Prophet himself. Now, is that really humor, or is that an insult designed to provoke? Secondly, in the last 3 minutes, at least on 3 occasions, some of you referred again to jihadist groups, jihadist terror, and so forth. Jihad means holy war. We are advertising them and reinforcing them in their beliefs when we talk like that. The real Muslims are not waging a holy war against us, at least not yet. But the objective of the fanatics is to turn the entire Muslim world against us. And we have to be clever and try to avoid that while opposing these extremists, these fanatics, who do not, as of now, even come close to representing the world of Islam.
Do you fear as...
Joe, can I...
Sure. Sure, jump in, Jeffrey.
Sorry. No. Just a quick response on the point about the vulgarity of cartoons. I would just say, as an American, as an advocate of the First Amendment, that we don't protect. The goal is not to protect inoffensive speech. We have free speech to protect what many people would consider offensive speech. And so it really is immaterial, ultimately, whether the speech is defined as vulgar or crude or humorless. Our goal in the West is to allow people to say what they want, even if it's offensive and painful. And that's the principle. That's a sacred ideal, I think, of France. It's a sacred ideal of the U.S. On the larger point about jihad, I understand that point exactly, and I've written very strongly on this point. I think that the key is to understand what's happening as, in many ways, a civil war within Islam. There is a minority that has a certain interpretation of Islam that is violent, that directs most of its violence, by the way, against other Muslims. I mean, other Muslims make up the majority of the victims of Al-Qaeda and ISIS and groups like that. And our goal should be to, as the West, should be to obviously defend ourselves and figure out ways to finish these groups off without growing the number of people who are attracted to these kind of groups. And in France, it's a perfect example. Most French Muslims have nothing to do with this ideology, nothing to do with these groups. But on the other hand, we can't ignore the fact that these people say they are motivated by religion, and we have to deal with the ideology as it is.
Dr. Brzezinski, we'll let you respond.
I agree with that, but words are weapons, and pictures can also be weapons, and cartoons can be weapons. And it depends on how they're used, how they're defined, and how they're received by people who are very sensitive, very aroused, and it's not sometimes in our interest to promote that. So it's a matter of common sense. The basic principle is, yes, we value free press.
Well,
we
nobody's
value freedom of
promoting
speech.
it. Nobody's promoting it. We're letting people express themselves the way they want.
Well, they were expressing themselves
no one is
the way
promoting
they
it.
want.
The president of France is not holding up this magazine.
Look, all I'm saying is,
would you legislate against blasphemy?
Hey, Jeffrey, hold on 1 second, because we have a delay, and that's causing some crosstalk here. So, Dr. Brzezinski, you respond, and then we'll go back to Jeffrey. Dr. Brzezinski.
I'm not talking about censorship. I'm talking about common sense.
And Jeffrey, we'll let you respond. Go ahead.
Well, I thank you, Joe. I just don't think, yeah, of course you could call on people to have common sense. I wouldn't write cartoons like that. I take blasphemy seriously, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but we have to defend the principle that you don't legislate against speech that some people define as offensive. Otherwise, you go down the slippery slope toward totalitarianism.